Je me suis rendu à la frontière entre la Pologne et l'Ukraine, qui est désormais le lieu de passage pour des milliers de personnes qui fuient la guerre. Depuis le 24 février 2022, 6,3 millions de réfugiés ont fui l'Ukraine, dont environ 1 million sont en Pologne. Selon l'ONU, 14 millions d'Ukrainiens ont besoin d'une aide humanitaire de toute urgence. En arrivant là-bas, j'ai rencontré Lee, un volontaire américain que j'ai décidé de suivre à travers ses différentes missions dans deux organisations humanitaires, PATA en Ukraine et Hope Foundation en Pologne. Ces organisations sont indispensables et dépendent énormément des dons ainsi que des volontaires pour aider les familles, les personnes âgées à continuer leur exil à travers l'Europe et l'Ukraine.
When the invasion started in 2022, the second invasion, obviously, uh, I already knew that this is going to be a a big event and for the world for this 21st century. And I want to see with my own eyes and talk to the people, especially from a humanitarian aid side, what the invasion, what the war, how it's affecting regular people, how it's moving them out from their homes and forcing them to relocate either again elsewhere in Ukraine or having to cross the border and move across and find help elsewhere in the EU, in Europe. What we do for the refugees, being a short-term refugee transit shelter, is that typically they stay 2 or 3 days. And we try to help them adjust during that time. But most importantly, we offer a bed at Hope Shelter for the refugees to stay. We make sure that it's safe, especially for the moms, the kids, the elderly couples, right? That's our main focus is the refugees that are coming through for their safety. And as well, I think some of the really most beautiful things that I see is the volunteers cooking for the refugees. So that's the third part is the kind of advice and guidance, just to give people information, some guidance where they can make an informed decision. And that's with Hope Shelter. Normal day is arriving in the morning, kind of just making sure everything's in place, toilet paper and the bathrooms are stocked. Going to make sure that there's some bread in the kitchen. The people who have left, strip their beds, make sure tidy it up, make sure it's clean and tidy for the next refugees who come through. Because again, usually people stay only 2-3 days. We're always getting a constant movement of people through the shelter. So we like to make it at least make them feel comfortable when they first come in. After that, we may look at the coal room. Yes. Unfortunately, in Poland, we still use a lot of coal to burn for heating. Whether that's heating up the rooms in the winter, maybe that's for the hot water. But shoveling coal, not the most environmental or sustainable, but that's what we have to work with on a tight budget. And also just making sure talking to the refugees if there's anything they need, toothbrush, toothpaste, some more shampoo, if they have any questions, arranging for transportation, because we normally also pick up refugees at the border. We have a car that was donated to us at Hope Shelter, and we use that car with volunteer drivers to pick up refugees at the border who walk across, bring them to the shelter, or drive them from the shelter when they need to go to the train station or bus station and on their way to elsewhere in Europe. And other than that, just when we get new refugees, registering them, sometimes some admin work. I'll say there's like two different types of refugees. The first one is what I mentioned before. They already have a plan from their NGO coordinators that's basically telling them, okay, we're going to book you a ticket when you cross the border to Germany or to Denmark or to Norway. The second type are refugees who show up at the train station or somehow make it across the border. They're asking at the train station, what do I do now, right? They have no plan.
Yeah.
They just packed all their stuff, whether for whatever reason in a rush, their village is about to get leveled, or they're coming over because they feel like this is the time, that this is kind of like the last string for them. A lot of the times they're staying not just a few days, but a couple weeks, if not longer, because we kind of make it quite good, welcoming atmosphere, pretty safe. As you see, we provide food tonight. We cook for them, and it's always great when, even though we don't cook daily like before. Before we used to, have volunteers switch off and cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now it's just easier. It's almost like running itself, more fluid. That the refugees cook the meals they want. Right? We just give them the free ingredients. The ingredients we get them donated, by a couple local supermarkets. Sometimes we have our sponsors and donors. One is the Belgians. You met them.
Yeah.
They came in, big convoys, and they give us all the Belgium goodies, and canned food. So, we give that to the refugees, and pasta and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's where the line starts. Oh my God, those guys, they have to wait for such a long time. That's it.
What I've seen for the most part is that the Polish people, I've seen throughout Poland, have, especially the younger generation, right? What were middle-aged generation, they've been very welcoming and willing to help the Ukrainian refugees. The government, again, that's just the president, but the government itself, from the prime minister and his party, have made a pivot to really helping Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, more so than the previous government. But from the people I've met, the Polish people I've met, they've been very helpful for Ukrainians.
Peu de temps après avoir pris la décision de franchir la frontière, j'apprends la mort d'un journaliste français qui se trouvait à proximité du front. La veille de mon départ, je reçois une notification, m'informant qu'il y a un risque de bombardement dans la ville où je me rends. Je me demande si j'ai fait le bon choix, d'autant plus que quelques jours auparavant, l'ouest ukrainien a été massivement bombardé, faisant de nombreuses victimes. Lee partage son temps entre la Pologne et l'Ukraine. Ici, il aide dans plusieurs organisations. Il m'invite à partager ses moments, par exemple dans une cuisine où des volontaires préparent des repas pour les soldats. Après cette première journée passée à la cuisine des volontaires, nous décidons d'aller manger en ville. Mais la guerre n'a pas tardé à se rappeler à nous. Cette fois-ci, la ville de Lviv sera épargnée. Et nous nous rendons le lendemain matin à la gare pour rejoindre les volontaires de l'association PATA.
The many people that I've helped at the Lviv train station with PATA, it's an organization that, again, helps the IDPs. What is the difference is, we help simply with bags, carrying their bags down. We help them, some of the elderly, some of the moms with their kids or baby carriages. But the organization itself was founded by doctors and psychologists. That's why on the back of the shirts in Ukrainian says medical psychological help.
Шановний пасажир, продовжується посадка. Наш якісний поїзд інтерсіті плюс номер 724 з полученням Львів. Поїзд знаходиться.
Because early in 2025 with USAID, with a lot of cuts, a lot of NGOs, including Hope Shelter and some of the grants that we received, they didn't realize in some way that they were tied to USAID. Some have been forced to close, some shelters in Poland as well, or throughout Europe have been forced to close. I know this. And it's impacted NGOs who work in and out of Ukraine, delivering humanitarian aid and supplies, essential medical supplies. So it's been a difficult 2025 to keep the shelter open, but we're trying the best we can. And I believe we'll just barely make it until the end of the year.
PATA est une organisation qui aide les déplacés ukrainiens, aussi bien à la gare, mais aussi via un centre d'hébergement long terme qui est en rénovation et que j'ai eu la chance de visiter. Des familles y sont déjà présentes.
Where I see my value in helping Ukraine is the reconstruction post-war, the rebuilding of the country. And I do see Hope Shelter, Hope Foundation being a part of that. We need to encourage the Ukrainians who have left the country since 2022, the majority, or at least quite a significant amount, to come back to Ukraine to help, again, rebuild the country because of this brain drain that has left. This is going to be a generational impact if they cannot bring the young Ukrainians back into the country post-war. So there needs to be incentives, the economy as well, job creation. In the end, Hope Foundation and Hope the shelter can act as a point where the Ukrainians returning can stay there for a night or two to acclimate before crossing the border back home, repatriating back home into their home country in Ukraine. We can give guidance, we can give information, points of contact to people that they can get in touch with in Ukraine. And as well, Hope Foundation can work with organizations, quite large corporations in a consultancy matter, to give, again, some guidance into how these companies that are part of, whether it's materials to rebuild, whether it's logistical, whether it's companies to set up a new factory in Ukraine. Again, the initial group of people coming into Ukraine will have a lot of questions, and hopefully we can answer those questions. For us as foreign volunteers, I can say simply being present. That the memories I have is of these Ukrainians coming off the train, and you can see their body language. You can see their emotional state. It's very, very low. They've just had their whole lives ripped from underneath them. So when they eventually talk to the Ukrainian volunteers and the volunteers tell them, oh, we have this volunteer from Australia, this volunteer from the UK, this volunteer from the US. Immediately their mood changes. That's what I remember. And their spirits are lifted a little bit higher. Because I think just by us foreign volunteers being present, it makes them feel that they're not alone in the struggle, that the world hasn't forgotten them, that we still care.